Hi, hey, hello, and welcome to just another episode of The Educated Fan. My name is Brandon, and I'm joined here by your co-host, my best friend, Andrew Moore. I sound a little low energy today. I'm a little tired. I was out in the sun, beating down on me today. It's like 100 degrees in Seattle, going to be 100 degrees again tomorrow. It's going to be a hot week. How are you doing, bud?
It's pretty hot here in Northeast Indiana, back home. It's a hot one today. It's been muggy. It's been hot. It's been kind of rainy. But hey, we're here on another glorious Sunday to talk Colts football with all of Colts Nation out here. I'm excited to start talking. Another position breakdown. We get started with your divisional breakdown. So that's something to look forward to. It's going to be a fun episode today, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Wide receiver, probably my favorite position group outside of, quarterback, but that's not really a group if you ask me. It's like there's a lot of wide receivers on this team too. I mean, there might be more wide receivers than there are linemen. That's probably an exaggeration, but.
Definitely. But I get what you're saying, though. There's a lot of guys in this wide receiver group that can make an impact. And it's really just who can stay healthy, who can connect well with Carson Wentz, and how these young guys, if they're going to take the next step. And then we also have Pro Bowler T.Y. Hilton that's looking to regain form. It's a very interesting group heading into 2021. Yeah.
How do you feel? Let's just start out this way. How do you feel about our wide receiver group this year? Off the top instead of at the end.
Right. I feel good. I don't feel great. I wouldn't say it's one of our best positions, but I feel pretty good about it. I mean, a lot of it also depends on how Carson Wentz plays with them. But you would think that all these wide receivers that we're going to talk about today, they all play a really good big role with the Colts. I mean, T.Y. Hilton, we're going to talk about first, but I think he has a chance to return to a form that we haven't seen in a couple of years. We're all expecting Michael Pittman Jr. to probably take that next step. Paris Campbell, I think, could be a huge weapon for this team if he can stay healthy. And on we go. But I feel pretty good, and I think that this group of wide receivers definitely better than what the Philadelphia Eagles had last year to help Carson Wentz. And I think that Carson Wentz can also help these Colts wide receivers reach the next level in their play as well.
Yeah, I feel real good. I think if Michael Pittman Jr., and we'll get there, if he takes that step we're going to talk about, I feel real good. But first off, obviously, we got T.Y. Hilton, wide receiver one, still, in my opinion, I think, in yours as well. T.Y. Hilton and Carson Wentz. We've talked about this a lot already. T.Y. has been kind of gone from the stat sheet the last couple years, but he also hasn't had a guy that likes to sling the pill down the field all that much. But you talked all the time last year still, and we've talked about it recently. It feels like we bring it up every time we talk about T.Y. Is the coverage demand that he produces, the double teams that he brings on, opening things up for other guys.
Yeah, and I think that's still true today. When even last year, if you watch the film, you see that T.Y. Hilton demands attention from other defenses. It might be the fans that say, "Oh, T.Y. is lost a step. T.Y. is not good." But defensive coordinators around the league certainly aren't talking about that. T.Y. Hilton last year, a lot of times was used as a decoy because he'd take the corner with him, and he'd also take his safety over the top because teams were afraid T.Y. was going to break it open. Because
he still can
open things up for the underneath routes too. He definitely can, and it opened things up for Michael Pittman Jr., for Zach Pascal to get those underneath routes and pick up those first downs. So when you look at in that aspect, I think with a bigger armed quarterback like Carson Wentz can definitely help suit what T.Y. Hilton is good at. Now, is T.Y. Hilton the burner that he used to be? Probably not. I mean, when you get older, you're not going to have that blazing 4.344 speed. But can he still beat defenses over the top? I absolutely, I believe he can. And Carson Wentz will be a more aggressive thrower because not only does he have to have a big arm, Jacoby Brissett had a big arm. Jacoby Brissett just didn't like taking deep shots down the field. Phillip Rivers didn't have the biggest arm, and he didn't like take deep shots down the field most of the time last year. So when you have a quarterback like Carson Wentz who does like to take those deep shots, and we've heard all these wide receivers we're going to talk about, seems like every single one of them, when they were talking in OTAs, they talked about how big his arm was. So I think T.Y. Hilton can regain his own form, and the way Carson Wentz plays, that will be a big part of it this season.
Yeah, I agree. It's also too, I don't even know, I might have blacked out there for a second, but it's another thing that's going to open up opportunities for TY is Carson Wentz's ability to keep plays alive when things break down in the pocket. His ability to get outside of the pocket and find guys that once their routes are through and nobody's been open, TY's real good at scrambling and getting open after the play breaks down, and Carson Wentz is going to be able to find him in those situations. So that's also going to open up some stuff for TY that he didn't have that opportunity with Phil so much. I guess Jacoby kind of, but Jacoby Brissett is not the athlete that Carson Wentz is.
Yeah, and that's a great point that you bring up. And it actually reminds me of a quote that I was looking up for my story this week on this. T.Y. Hilton, when Frank Reich came to the Colts in 2018, he was talking with Andrew Luck and kind of asking him what makes T.Y. Hilton such a weapon for you guys. Mm-hmm. And one of the first things that Andrew Luck said is just how savvy he is on the field. When the play breaks down, T.Y. Hilton has an uncanny ability to find those spots in the zone, to sit down and find a spot where his quarterback can hit him when there's no other option. So you're exactly right that I think when things do start to break down and Carson Wentz has to use his athletic ability to make a play, that's another area where T.Y. Hilton is going to come into play heavily. And I'm sure Carson Wentz will be relying on T.Y. in a big way to make those plays when things do break down.
Michael Pittman Jr. Now, he had an up and down first year. I don't remember what week he finally scored his first touchdown, but it was after he came back from his injury. The compression syndrome
against Green Bay.
Yep. Oh God, what a game that was. But I mean, especially in the second half of that season when he came back from his injury, he really started to come on strong, showed his ability to get yards after the catch, showed his freakish ability to find the end zone. He started to use his size to his advantage, and I think these are all things that are going to get better and better this season, along with just knowledge of the offense, crisper route running, ability to do things like TY does, finding those soft spots and zones and different stuff like that. But he could also just be about the same as last year. And if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. So what do you expect out of MPJ this year?
I really do think he's going to take that next step. And I think the reason we didn't see a bigger contribution from Michael Pittman Jr. throughout the year is because of that injury, that compartment leg syndrome injury that he suffered against the Jets. And that takes a lot out of you, especially as a young receiver, because receiver, you see some of these guys come in and just light the league on fire like Justin Jefferson did last year. But for a lot of the wide receivers, it does take a little bit of time to get adjusted to the pro game because you're not dealing with as athletic cornerbacks. The press coverage is way more intense, the kind of things like that. So when Michael Pittman came in, and then he was kind of starting to get into the rhythm of things, and then he had that injury. It's kind of like he had to start all over again. And that's why I think towards the end of the year, that's when we saw Michael Pittman Jr. really start to pick it up. And when you think about that game in the wild card round against Buffalo, he had one of his best games all year. I think he had like 5 catches for 90 yards. And if Phillip Rivers doesn't overthrow him, he's got a touchdown too that ultimately might have put the Colts into the divisional round. So Michael Pittman Jr., I think, has that potential to really take that next step. Last year we saw a lot of his plays on those either slants, those short, those crossers across the middle where he was able to get all those yards after catch. And I think the Colts will still use that to his advantage, just because of how strong he is as a runner, how it takes quite a few people to bring him down. So when you're talking about that will definitely be something that's in this Colts offense. But I think you could also see more deep shots down the field to Michael Pittman Jr. And I think from me at least, you're going to see a theme with how I think these wide receivers can progress and the differences that you'll see from last year to this year. So we might see a little bit more of a red zone threat from Michael Pittman because, I mean, he's 6'4". The dude can jump. He go up and he's going to throw some to the back corner of the end zone. Let Michael Pittman go to work and do those things. I mean, he was a deep threat in USC, either a deep post or deep shots, really kind of developed into that traditional X outside wide receiver. That's what I want to see from Michael Pittman Jr. this year. And I think we could see him take those steps and really get closer to being that legitimate outside X, or even closer to maybe a wide receiver 1 down the line for this Colts team.
I think that's his real potential down the line, is wide receiver 1. That's the goal. I mean, the torch keeps getting passed from one guy to another, and we just assume Michael Pittman Jr. Is going to be that guy, and I think he can be. I love that dude. I'm probably going to get his jersey. Like I said, it's between him and JT right now. I'm debating. So maybe I'll buy JT, and if MPJ blows up like I think he's going to this year, I'll get one of those later in the year. Another guy that, I mean, if he can keep it together this year, injury-wise, have a little better luck, that, I mean, at one point we were probably thinking maybe this could be the next guy to take the torch from TY. Hasn't gone that way for Paris Campbell so far this year. I mean, we've talked about this a ridiculous amount already. Paris Campbell is going to be a good wide receiver if he can stay on the football field. Period.
It's really pretty simple. And the thing is, what sucks about all this is that Paris Campbell throughout high school, throughout college, never got injured. It's just that as soon as he got into the league, and it really has been bad luck. It hasn't really been anything that he's done either.
Yeah.
I mean, his rookie year, he had a broken hand, a broken foot, he had an abdominal injury, and he had a sports hernia. All of those aren't little injuries. You're going to be out a considerable amount of time. And then the second game of the year, he gets a helmet straight to his knee. Nothing he could do about that.
Yeah, that was tough.
It just sprained his MCL, PCL really, really bad. And I think you kind of saw what this offense would look like with a healthy Paris Campbell and how Frank Reich would get him involved.
We saw,
because when you look at week 1, when you look at week 1 against Jacksonville, when Paris Campbell was featured, I mean, he had plenty of times where he was wide open, creating those plays down the field. And I kind of want to ask you this before I give my prediction of what I think Paris Campbell can be for this offense. What if healthy, what do you see Paris Campbell's role being for the 2021 Colts?
I would see his role, I don't know. It depends on if we see a decreased amount of snaps from TY too, which I wouldn't expect a dramatic decrease. But if TY's off the field, I think that's Paris's role right now. And who knows? Maybe using TY as that distraction in certain situations. Paris Campbell's the one that's going to take it off the top, or Paris Campbell's going to be the one running some crisp route that makes you go, ooh, you know what I mean? I guess he's probably more similar in style to T.Y. Hilton, and you're going to start seeing hopefully more deep balls from Carson Wentz down the field to Paris Campbell if he can stay healthy.
See, for me, when I think of a healthy Paris Campbell, I go back to when the last time that Carson Wentz and Frank Reich were together in 2017. And when you look at those games and that Philadelphia Eagles offense, the guy that Paris Campbell kind of reminds me of is Nelson Aguilar. So when you're looking at those plays, the routes that Nelson Aguilar ran in that offense, kind of maybe those deep outs or those shots down the seam, or maybe shots down the sidelines. Some we're still going to use Paris Campbell in some end around situations, maybe some short drag
I would love
routes
to see
get him out in space and get that speed going. That's kind of how I could see Paris Campbell being used in this offense. So not necessarily taking snaps away from T.Y. Hilton, because I still think T.Y. Hilton is going to be greatly featured in this offense. But I'm thinking more of kind of the situations where maybe he takes some snaps away from Zach Pascal Pascal may be used more on running plays and different situations like that, more instead of spreading it out, kind of maybe more 2 wide receiver sets, some 3 wide receiver sets, but you kind of get my point. Paris Campbell might come in for those when they're looking to kind of speed things up, get the ball out quicker, and maybe use it in that sense, because I think T.Y. Hilton will be featured more this year just because of how Carson Wentz's strengths help and exemplify T.Y. Hilton's strengths.
Yeah.
Michael Pittman Jr., they want to give him every chance they can to be on the field and accelerate his growth. That's why I think maybe Paris Campbell could take away some snaps from Zach Pascal instead of a T.Y. Hilton. Obviously, we'll have to see once camp comes around and once we start rolling. But Nelson Aguilar role, that's where I could see Paris Campbell being a huge weapon in this offense.
I guess I don't think they're going to take away snaps from T.Y. because of Paris Campbell. My point is, if T.Y. comes off the field, Paris Campbell is more likely to step into that role than a Michael Pittman Jr. or maybe Zach Pascal. He's got to be better than Zach Pascal this year. Look, if he's not better than Zach Pascal this year, we got to let him go.
It's a big year for Paris Campbell. It's a really big year. It's now, and I think he recognizes that. He recognizes that if he doesn't perform this year, he doesn't stay healthy, he could be out of Indianapolis and possibly out of the league if this continues.
How many receivers do you see making the roster? How many on the practice squad? I assume we'll get to that here at the end once we go through everybody, and we'll talk about who we think makes the team. Zach Pascal. I don't know what to expect for Zach Pascal's role this year. Similar to what it's been, guy that just gets open and scores touchdowns. People don't talk about it.
Pretty much, Zach Pascal has been kind of the unofficial wide receiver too the past couple of years, because all he does is go out there and he gets you maybe 600 yards a year, 40 receptions and 5 touchdowns. The dude just does his job. And Nick Sirianni last year, he said he told his kids that if they grew up to be football players, that he wanted them to be exactly like Zach Pascal. So, everybody thinks the world of Zach Pascal. If you need him to go put on a big block, he's going to do it. If you need him to go out and get you a first down on third down, he's going to do it. Zach Pascal's almost the Jack Doyle of the tight ends. He just does what he needs to do. An undrafted guy, he works his butt off, and he's there when you need him. So I think the way the Colts are playing and how they love to spread the ball around, I do think that Zach Pascal is going to have a role in this offense. Now, whether he's going to be a featured wide receiver, if the top 3 guys like Hilton, Pittman, and Campbell can stay healthy, that I'm unsure of, because I'm sure they would like to get the big playmakers the ball. But Zach Pascal will be on the field. Zach Pascal will be on this roster, and we'll see him a lot more than people may think, just because of the Colts are still going to want to run the ball. He's still probably the best run blocker of the wide receiver group. So he's going to have a role on this team at a pretty crucial one. Zach Pascal can get it done. He's probably the best bang for your buck and the best kind of, I don't even consider him a backup, but kind of a role-playing wide receiver that you can have. Dude just does everything, produces when called upon, and you can trust him.
I'll never forget that game against the Falcons that we were at. Just how wide open he was, and I'm screaming to pass the ball to Zach I've never seen a dude so wide open. He couldn't believe he was so wide open, and Brissett finally finds him in the end zone. That I'll never forget that touchdown, that Zach Pascal touchdown. That was hilarious to me. These next 3 guys, kind of among the bottom of the group: Ashton Dulin, Desmond Patman, and Mike Strawn. I personally see Patman making the team this year. I see Desmond Patman getting his first NFL touchdown this year, but I don't know where he ranks compared to Ashton Dulin, and I just got to assume Mike Strawn, with where he was drafted, probably is more of a practice squad guy, maybe similar to Desmond Patman, where he's continuously on the roster and just doesn't dress, something like that. I'm not as good with the bottom of the roster lineup stuff like you are, Andrew. So how do you picture the bottom of the lineup looking this year?
I guess we can answer
this fellow's question. Colts loyalist 5678. How many people are going to make make the active roster, and then where are they going to be at?
So I think the Colts will keep 6 wide receivers. They normally don't go any more than that, and you're definitely sacrificing in other position groups. So I think they'll probably keep 6, and then it'll just kind of depend numbers wise how many are kept on the practice squad. Usually they keep a couple on the practice squad, so I would think that's probably the same this year, maybe 2 to 3. As of right now, before camp starts, and obviously this can all change once camp gets going, and you see guys if guys perform way better than expected or other guys don't, this could obviously change. But as of right now, I think it'll be Desmond Patman and Ashton Dulin that make the 53, and we'll probably see Mike Strawn start out on the practice squad. And the reason for that is because we'll start with Patman. So Patman, like you said, Patman was kept on the active roster all last year. They could have put him on the practice squad, but they didn't. They really see something in Desmond Patman that they think he could develop not only into a massive deep threat that he was in college, but he can be maybe that backup X receiver to Michael Pittman, someone that can be relied upon in those big wide receiver situations. And they really like where he's at in his development. Over this past year, he's been another guy that just really works his butt off. Yeah. All offseason, he's been right in step with Michael Pittman Jr., working with him as well. So Desmond Patman, it's a guy they're really high on and they think can make a contribution on this team. And then when you talk about Ashton Dulin is a guy that many people probably don't know of, but at the same time, Ashton Dulin's the guy that does all the little things. He's become one of the good special teams players on this Colts team, and here's the time of year where we start bringing it up to make the 53-man roster. On that back end, you got to be able to play special teams, and you got to be able to play it well. So Ashton Dulin is a gunner on special teams. He's a guy that the Colts have used in end around situations, and he's been with the team for a couple of years now, so he knows the offense. So I think that's what kind of gives him the edge over Michael Strawn, because Strawn, I really don't see him playing too much special teams, and he's still very, very raw. While he's an athletic freak and an absolute freak, like this guy is built. He's just a massive human being, especially for a wide receiver. He is coming from Division II, and while it seems like he's not as raw as what people thought, I would still think he would need some more time to adjust to not only just the Division I, but we're going from Division II to the NFL. So he's going to take some time, and I think that's probably what would give Patman the edge over Strawn, is he's just been able to develop more, been at that higher level for a little bit longer, and the Colts have had their hands on him. But like I said, it could all change just depending on how camp goes. But as of right now, I see Patman and Dulin making it, and Strawn will start out on the practice squad.
Yeah. So exactly what I said. Pretty much a genius. Yeah, you know what, though? You brought up a good point about Desmond Patman being this freak of nature in regards to his work ethic. You know, this is what happens when you got a team that's so good at drafting character and finding character for the team. That's one of the things you run into is you're like, well, shit, we got all these guys that bust their ass and you like to keep around, but unfortunately, that's just not how it goes.
We've talked about it. I think not on the show, but just texting back and forth, and you can kind of see it because Michael Pittman Jr. has the vlogs that he runs on YouTube. Desmond Patman's pretty much been living with him all off season. Patman's gotten big. Like this dude looks ripped and buff and ready to go. He looks like he's put on quite a bit of muscle, and he's got an NFL body now. And that could help him not only going across the middle instead of just being a deep guy, it could help him in those red zone situations, going across the middle to pick up tough yards, things like that. So look for Desmond Patman to really, the Colts, especially in preseason, to really give him a shot to show what he can do.
All right. Anything else on receivers?
As of right now, I think that covers it.
Still think we could use one big playmaker
about this.
One more.
There's not really anybody out there.
I know that.
Who would you? Who would you take? So
I don't know who we would take, but somebody needs to step up and do it.
I think the Colts are comfortable with where they're at. If not, they would have probably put in an offer for Julio Jones if they weren't comfortable. And from what I was hearing, the Colts were not interested in Jones at all. They didn't really call Atlanta and really even think about it. They're comfortable where they're at. They want to see what their young guys can do. And they think that we can see a renaissance with T.Y. Hilton this year with Carson Wentz.
Yeah, well, listen, I'm all good with comfortable and all, but I'm looking for, a Super Bowl personally. So I want some guys that are going to do that, not just get us comfortably to the playoffs, but somebody needs to step up is my point. Paris Campbell, maybe he's the guy. Maybe this is the year. All right, let's move it along. So move it along. So we're going to move it along to the division breakdowns. I switched it up on you guys. I went NFC South. I just decided to go with the Super Bowl champions division. Just seemed to make sense. So who knows? I guess maybe that means AFC West next week. Not going to do a single one of the two that I wanted to start out with. I just thought this direction made more sense. So you'd think we'd start out with the Buccaneers, but no, the Saints won the division last year. So we'll talk about them a little bit first. I'll try to run through all the stuff we have quick-ish, just in regards to roster moves and whatnot. But free agency, gone. Wide receiver, Emmanuel Sanders. Cornerback, Janoris Jenkins. Punter, who Pat McAfee holds in high esteem, Thomas Morstead. Pat McAfee thinks that dude's great. And Pat McAfee knows a lot more about punting than me. Gone. Linebacker, Quan Alexander. Tight end, Jared Cook. Trey Hendrickson signs, he's defensive end, signed a huge deal with Cincinnati, $60 million if the information I was looking at is correct. So they've lost some talent this year. They traded Malcolm Brown to Jacksonville, but they did sign or re-sign Ty Montgomery, Jameis Winston. That's an interesting one. And safety, P.J. Williams. What do you think? I guess I didn't I talk about the draft yet. They did replace some of these guys that they've lost, but what do you think about the roster moves of the Saints?
So you didn't even mention it, but Drew Brees retired.
That
was a huge one. That they lost their starting quarterback for the past I can't even remember, over 15 years.
The website I use doesn't show retirements.
So the biggest thing I am ready to see this year is just how Jameis Winston, because I think Jameis Winston will be the starter for the New Orleans Saints at quarterback. I want to see how Jameis Winston can perform under the tutelage of Sean Payton. I mean, everybody's so high on Taysom Hill, but I mean, I'm not as a pure quarterback.
Not everybody is.
Give me Jameis Winston over Taysom Hill. I mean, seriously. Pretty much everybody is. Everybody that I see on the internet, it loves Taysom Hill, but you know what? Taysom Hill, I would rather have Jameis Winston, honestly, just from a pure quarterback standpoint. And that's what's going to be interesting. I want to see how Jameis Winston can improve and really lead this team under the tutelage of Sean Payton. How can Sean Payton make Jameis Winston into a better quarterback and keep the Saints as one of the top teams in the NFC?
I think there's some people out there saying the Saints just needed a quarterback to be able to go to the Super Bowl in these last couple of years. I was like, sheesh, Drew Brees, the disrespect. But I mean, who knows? Maybe, Drew Brees' arm was breaking down at the end of the year the last 2 years. He wasn't able to make the throws you would expect Drew Brees to make the last couple of years, especially towards the end of the season. But so maybe, Jameis Winston could have been something to push him over the edge. Maybe Taysom Hill could have been enough to push him over the edge. I would love to see Taysom Hill starting at quarterback. Draft-wise, they did draft your new favorite college quarterback, Ian Book from Notre Dame, in the fourth round. Andrew, the giant Notre Dame fan these days. But in the draft, they also got a guy we like, Peyton Turner, for defensive end to replace Trey Hendrickson. They got Pete Werner, linebacker out of OSU. They got a corner. So they did make some defensive moves, not really anything notable on the offense. Schedule, 5 primetime games, including 2, this is weird, 2 Thursday night games in a row. Do you think the Saints love that or hate that? if I'm the players, I love it, especially if I'm a vaccinated player that gets to have a weekend out of it.
Two Thursdays in a row. I mean, it gives them that weekend, but they don't really have necessarily the long bye. I mean, it's interesting. I've never really seen a team play 2 Thursdays in a row before.
Oh, this year you will.
It's gonna be interesting to see how they handle that.
Bye week in week 6. A little early probably for their liking. Some notable games. Green Bay, bang, right off the bat. At home, they get Green Bay week 1. Obviously, they're going to play the Bucs twice. Seattle on Monday Night Football. That should be a good football game. And then they've got the AFC East. So Bills, Miami, New England are all good games, and they play Tennessee. So they're not going to have a very easy year to repeat as division champions. So we'll see how they do. A new quarterback, Sean Payton. We're really going to get to see just how good Sean Payton is this year.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I did like when they took Peyton Turner. I mean, Peyton Turner was one of my favorite edge guys in this class. I think he can make a pretty big impact across from Cam Jordan. Marcus Davenport, the guy they traded up for, an edge defender they traded up for this few years ago, he really hasn't made too big of an impact. So that's a guy that I think on that team you can watch out to see whether Peyton Turner may take his snaps, and it might be the end of the road for Davenport on the Saints. But I think it's still, like I said, it's going to come down to that quarterback position, whether it's Jameis Winston or Taysom Hill, whoever it is, how Sean Payton can get them in the spots to succeed and turn them into a franchise quarterback. So you're absolutely right. Sean Payton's going to have to earn it this year.
Yeah. Let's move it along to the Buccaneers, Super Bowl champs, free agency. We all know they kept all 22 starters. Ridiculous. I don't know if it's ever been done.
Pretty wild.
I don't know if it's ever been done. Do you know off the top of your head? I don't think so.
I don't think it has been. It's just, especially in this day and age, with free agency and guys after they win, usually guys like, okay, I've got my ring. Now it's time to go out and cash in on that and try to make as much money as possible. A lot of these guys came back on shorter deals, on cheaper deals than they would get in free agency on a different team, but they wanted to all stick together and run it back. So it is pretty incredible what their GM has been able to do in keeping all their guys to come back and try to make another run at it.
The question though is that a good thing? You know what I mean? Like now everybody on the starting roster has won a Super Bowl. Okay. Everybody. Now, is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? Usually you have a little turnaround. The Patriots, had turnover the last time they won 2 in a row. And those new guys that come in, they come to this team that just won a Super Bowl, still looks like, oh, you're still in a Super Bowl window, right? So you got some guys that are extra motivated to get there first. Everybody on this roster, minus Tom Brady and Gronkowski, perhaps, we don't know how they're going to react to just winning a Super Bowl. Maybe they kick back and relax and, they don't much give a shit about doing it again. If Tom Brady is around, though, he's the one that's going to be able to keep them motivated to push for that second one in a row. But like I said, we've not seen it before, so who knows? They signed running back Giovanni Bernard as well. That should add some depth for them at running back. Draft, first round, they got Joe Tryon.
There you go.
From Washington, linebacker. Jeez. In round 2, they did get a quarterback who could really benefit from hanging out with Tom Brady day in and day out. Kyle Trask, quarterback out of Florida. Nothing spectacular aside from that. Schedule, 5 primetime games by week 9. Some notable games at Rams week 3. That's after the Rams are in Indy. And then they've got the AFC East. So obviously, so they're also at Indy week 12. That's that 17th game that was added this year. We've talked about that. Bucks are in a situation where they can be good again. It's just we're going to find out if keeping all 22 starters is a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah, and I think they're relying on the leadership of not only Tom Brady, but of Bruce Arians, because BA is, if any of these guys start slacking off or any of them start getting complacent, BA is going to be on their ass and wanting them to, and letting them know, hey, this isn't going to fly. We're here to repeat. We're here to accomplish that again. And if you're slacking off, you're going to get replaced by a guy that's not slacking off. So I think that's what they're relying on. Like you said, Kyle Trask, I think, is a guy that you're absolutely right. He could really benefit because he's more in the Tom Brady mold in that he's not very athletic. And I mean that in saying that he can't really make things happen outside the pocket. He's more of strictly a pocket passer.
Okay.
But Kyle Trask, I think, is a very smart quarterback and someone that can learn behind Tom Brady. Now,
I don't know
when you get to their schedule. They play against Buffalo. That's going to be.
I don't know. While we're on the subject of Kyle Trask, I don't know that we've ever seen a young quarterback get to study behind a good quarterback in Bruce Arians' system. At least not in recent memory. Everybody that's gotten Bruce Arians is, well, shit, I'm learning the Bruce Arians system and I'm playing now. So it'll be interesting to see if once Brady retires when he turns, 50, if Kyle Trask is ready. I mean, he should be more ready for that offense and not have the slow start in the Bruce Arians offense that you see.
Right. So, yeah, that's just something to keep an eye on, because if he can progress, we might see when Brady does retire, Kyle Trask taking over as the Buccaneers quarterback. And then just real quick on the schedule, it'll be Tom Brady going back to New England for the first time. They play against Buffalo. That'll be a really good game. And then the game against Indy, Robert Mathis is going into the Ring of Honor that day. So the Colts, especially that defensive line, is going to have a little bit extra oomph behind them and wanting to get after Tom Brady.
I got to get tickets to that game. That's just got to happen. Hey, P.S. I'm coming back home to Indiana, fans. Eventually. Yeah, that's it for the Bucs. Next one, Panthers. Interesting team going forward this year. Matt Rule, right? That's his name. Yeah, Matt Rule, the head coach, second year. He gets Sam Darnold through trade. I mean, obviously, number one thing that's happened, in my opinion, for them this offseason. They did have some offensive line movement, I think, letting some go, bringing some in. They signed cornerback A.J. Bouye, and like obviously I said, traded for Darnold and traded Teddy away. I don't really remember what they got for Darnold or had to give up for Darnold or what they got for Teddy off the top of my head, but I mean, they didn't really lose much in regards to, if I remember correctly, by giving away Teddy and getting Darnold. They drafted a stud cornerback in J.C. Horn, wide receiver Terrace Marshall Jr. In the second from LSU. Did we talk about him in our draft preview?
I was a pretty big fan of Terrace Marshall Jr. I felt like he would have been a very good fit for the Colts and a guy that could take over another outside position, kind of opposite of Michael Pittman Jr. eventually down the line.
Well, Sam Darnold doesn't have any shortage of weapons over there. Christian McCaffrey, was DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, and now the Terrace Marshall Jr. I mean, Sam Darnold is if there were any time for him to break out and have that kind of season we've been expecting from him, if he didn't get drafted to the Jets, this is opportunity to show like I'm a starting quarterback in this league. Schedule. They did not do well last year, so they're getting one primetime game. Week 1, love this game. Week 1 against the Jets. Right off the bat, Sam Darnold failed playing it. This has to be the first time this ever happened. A starting quarterback gets traded away to start for another team and plays his old team in the very first game. We get to see Zach Wilson that day. So exciting stuff out of that football game. At Arizona, week 10. They've got a week 13 bye. By the way, the Bucs got the best time to have a bye. Week 9. Good for them. Must be nice. Bye week 13, and some other notable games. Again, they've got to play the AFC East, so they got to deal with Buffalo. They got to deal with Tampa and the Saints twice. Oh God, and it's what is it? Tampa. I'm sorry. That's what I have written down. Buffalo, Tampa, Saints, Tampa to finish the season.
That's rough.
Yeah.
That's super rough. Yeah, I think it's just time. Sam Darnold has everything that he needs and he's in a different spot. He's in, I think, a better offensive system. He's got Joe Brady there, who used to be the offensive coordinator for Joe Burrow when Burrow was in LSU. You mentioned all the weapons that he has. If there was any place for Sam Darnold to get a new start on his career, Carolina is a great place to do it. And now he's kind of in the Carson Wentz situation where you really don't have any excuses now. You need to show the potential that you have and that many people thought you had coming out of college, or your time in the NFL, at least as a starter, those days might be limited. So it's going to be interesting to see how he can take over that Carolina offense and see what success they can have, because it's a tough division for sure.
Real quick, Andrew, before we move on to the Falcons, we had another question. Do you think there's concern to losing Strawn off the practice squad due to his measurables?
I mean, obviously, when you put a guy on the practice squad, it's not exactly guaranteed that he's going to stay there. I'm not sure if the same things apply, like the same practice squad rules apply as they did last year, where you can protect certain guys on the practice squad. If so, I think that Michael Strong would be one of those guys that is protected on the practice squad. But at this, you're kind of at that point at the back end of the roster. Would you rather have Michael Strong be on there and keep Ashton Dulin on the practice squad? Because Ashton Dulin is usually active and plays quite a few snaps on special teams every single week. Now, would you rather switch that out and have Michael Strawn on there who doesn't play any? It's just kind of what you would rather value. And I think with the Colts valuing special teams in such a high regard, they'd put Michael Strawn on the practice squad. And if the rules are the same, I'm not exactly sure if they are, Michael Strawn could be one of those guys that they'd have as a protected player on the practice squad.
That'll be something to look into and listen later this week in our early episode this week, because of the 4th of July and all. Falcons, free agency. But actually, you know what? First, new head coach, Arthur Smith. Isn't that the owner's name?
It's Arthur Blank is the owner.
Never mind. A couple of Arthurs. Free agency, they signed running back Mike Davis. Cordero Patterson. Maybe this website was just fudging something up. Is Cordero Patterson considered a running back now? Not a wide receiver? Did I miss something?
I mean, he started his career as a wide receiver, but for the past few years, he's been listed as a running back. I think when he was on the Bears, he was listed as a running back. So he mostly plays running back now and starts out in the backfield.
Sounds like
he's used pretty much as a weapon all around the field.
And an absolute ace. They signed A.J. McCarron. They did lose center Alex Mack. Big money with San Francisco. Todd Gurley's gone, and recent news, we obviously know Julio Jones was traded away, but they certainly made up for some of these moves. I think tight end, first round, 4th overall pick of the draft, Kyle Pitts, tight end from Florida. I mean, I just think he's going to be everything as advertised. I think he's going to be a real good football player for that team. Second round, safety Richie Grant. Third round, they got an offensive tackle to try to protect Matt Ryan a little bit. I think they made some offensive line moves as well in free agency, trying to protect Matt Ryan a bit. Matt Ryan's still a good quarterback, and you're crazy if you say otherwise. I think the Falcons, there's no way that team doesn't pick it up compared to last year. I mean, last year was as bad as it could get. Schedule, only one primetime game, a Thursday night against the Pats, a little Super Bowl rematch. That's probably not going to go in their favor. That's in week 11. By week 6, a couple other notable games, a 9:30 a.m. Game against the Jets. I assume that's in the UK, and they do have to play at San Francisco. Other than that, they do have an opportunity to bounce back against some pretty low-level opponents.
I think you're a little bit higher on the Falcons as a team than I am. I do agree with you that Kyle Pitts is incredible. He's a generational talent at tight end. I think within maybe after this year, we'll be talking about him as being a top 5 tight end in this league. And I think while you lose Julio Jones, it allows Calvin Ridley to be that true number 1 wide receiver. And I think Calvin Ridley has the talent to be that number 1 wide receiver. He's an animal. I'm really high on Calvin Ridley. I'm not sure how this defense is going to react, because last year I don't think it was really the offense that was too much of a problem. It was the defense that was just very bad, very, very bad. So I think that's what it's going to be. Arthur Smith is a good coach. I mean, look what he did to resurrect Ryan Tannehill's career. Look what he turned that Tennessee offense into as their offensive coordinator. So it's going to be interesting to see how he maybe has the same impact with Matt Ryan. And if Matt Ryan can return to maybe a possible MVP candidate, Matt Ryan, kind of tough to determine when you get into the age that Matt Ryan is. But at the same time, Aaron Rodgers is a little bit older and did the same thing. So it's going to be really predicated on how that defense performs and if they can play up to par, because I think when we talked about it multiple times this year, it wasn't the offense that was a problem in Atlanta. It was the defense. So if that defense can step it up, you could see a step up in performance from the Falcons as a team.
Yeah. What do you see? How do you see the division shaking out ranking wise, 1 through 4?
I think the Bucs will take the division this year, just because I think they have the best team, best all around team. I still think the Saints will be number 2, just because they do have a quality team around them. Quarterback's just the question. Then I would probably say Panthers and then Falcons, because I think I have faith in Sam Darnold that he's going to really rejuvenate this Panthers offense, and it's going to look a lot better. They're going to get Christian McCaffrey back as well. Hopefully he can stay healthy all year. And then the Falcons, I think, will still be last in the division, because that defense was just so bad. I can't see them taking such a huge leap to really make that big of a difference. So I'll go Bucs, Saints, Panthers, Falcons.
I've got it a little mixed up differently than you. I've got actually every single position different. Saints, Bucs, Falcons turning around this year, and Panthers. I think this division is going to be more competitive this year than years past. But let's move it along to some NFL news. Andrew, first, I want to just go ahead and say congratulations to Mr. Carl Nassib coming out of the closet and announcing that he's gay. First active player to ever do so in the NFL. People talking about, well, what about Michael Sam? Well, he didn't make a team. And if you think it's not because he wasn't good enough. You don't win Defensive Player of the Year in the SEC, the most NFL-ready defenses in the country, with not being good enough. We're not going to go down that road, but congrats to him. Glad he was able to do that, Carl Nassib. And then also not on the list, let's talk about real quick first this opt-out thing. The NFL announced, along with some new COVID protocols that we talked about, was that last week, for the season, they announced this week, for whatever reason, players are going to have the option to opt out again this year. And my brain was, okay, well, who's going to do that? Nobody, right? What was your first reaction to that? Especially because it's so early. They have to make the decision by this Friday. That's insane. What did you think about that decision?
I mean, I think the NFL is just leaving it out there if people do want to make the decision and think. But as a player, I think if you opted out last year and then you opted out again this year, I mean, yes, it's your personal choice, but I mean, the vaccinations out there, that would be 2 years taken off of your prime years to be in the NFL that you can never get back. So I'm not sure if anybody will take that. If they do, I mean, good luck to them. But I think most, if not all, of the NFL should opt in, especially with there being a vaccine out there that you have the ability to take. The NFL handled COVID pretty well last year, so good that the option's out there, I guess. But I would guess most people do opt in and aren't too worried about it.
Yeah, I didn't understand it at first, but I still really don't. If anybody opting out this year is not opting out because of COVID, which by the way they don't have, it doesn't have to be because they're worried about COVID. There's no rule that says otherwise, which is what made me kind of raise an eyebrow and go, what about Aaron Rodgers? Aaron Rodgers is in a situation here where, and I'm sure everybody else is talking about this, but Aaron Rodgers is in a situation where he's in a standoff with the Packers, and it's either retire, he's not going to do that, sit out a year and lose about $20.3 million, I think was the number, or play and be pissed off. And, the only person he doesn't like on that team is Mark Murphy, the president or GM or whatever the hell his technical role is. So he wouldn't have to deal with him anyway. But if Rodgers was serious about sitting out a season, this would be a way to do it without losing $20 million, but he'd have to make that decision by Friday. But like you said to me the other day, I can't see him sitting out a year just because he's only got a few left. 4 maybe.
Right. I really can't see him doing that. And the thing is, if he opts out, he can't be traded in that time. And that's right. That's what he wants. He wants to be traded. Exactly. You can't trade a player that's opted out. So that's why I think this thing will come down to the wire. It probably will go into training camp, and we'll have to see which side caves first. Really, are they going to trade him, or is he going to come back? But if he opts out, I mean, basically this just gets picked up again next offseason because you can't trade him if he has opted out. So I don't think he will. It's an interesting theory, but I don't think he opts out.
What kind of an effect could this whole sitting out thing, being, the franchise star quarterback, what kind of effect do you think that could have on his relationships with his head coach, who he supposedly is a big fan of, with Devontae Adams, who I know is one of his good friends? These other players, Bakhtiari, Aaron Rodgers likes to claim, the credit for Bakhtiari becoming the highest paid, left guard, I think, in the league at the time. Left tackle. You know what I mean? Different stuff like that. How does that affect these guys who are trying to prepare for a season? And right now, Aaron Rodgers, whether that's his intention or not, he's hindering that ability for those guys.
I don't think it has an effect on the teammates per se. Mm-hmm. I think the teammates, as a player, when there's contract things happening, when there's beefs with the front office, 9 times out of 10, the players will back the other players because that's their business. That's their deal with the front office. They want their teammate to get the best they can for him. So I don't think it'll affect the teammates. Devontae Adams has already said that it hasn't anything.
Devontae Adams is on a contract
coach
year.
Matt LaFleur might be a little bit right. He is. Matt LaFleur, I think it might be a little bit different just because he's the head coach and his livelihood is predicated on wins and losses. So obviously he would much rather have the MVP back than Jordan Love, who hasn't taken an NFL snap. But at the same time, if they are really that close, I'm sure Matt LaFleur is trying to work with him and trying to see if things can be worked out to get him back with the Packers. Mm-hmm. So I think it's probably a little bit different with the coaches, but as players are probably standing behind Aaron Rodgers and wanting him to do what's best for him.
All right, let's move along to what is on the list. You know what? Not a bad thing that I had a few different things to the front because this is a sad first few things in news, Andrew. I was like, geez, is this all we got? Chiefs defensive end Frank Clark arrested and charged with felony possession of a concealed firearm. He had an Uzi, and he had it in like a gym bag. He got pulled over. He has it in a gym bag. His gym bag's open. Why do you have an Uzi in a gym bag, first of all? Second of all, why do you have the bag hanging open? Not too intelligent, that move.
This, once OTAs ends and before camp begins, this is the time where the players are free to do what they want. And it's good for them to maybe get away, get some vacation, train a little bit. But it's also a lot the time of the year where you hear a lot of guys getting in trouble for just dumb and reckless stuff. And this is one of them. And the next couple things, one of them wasn't the guy's fault. Another one was. But it's just that time of year, and you hear these things. I think kind of the aspect where when you draft for character like the Colts, these things really happen with their players.
Vikings rookie defensive tackle Jalen Twyman Is that right? Twyman was shot 4 times
Yep.
while visiting his aunt in Washington, D.C. this week. Is he okay? I did not hear about this. Is he okay?
Yeah, he's expected to make a full recovery. He did have surgery right after it happened, but very, very scary situation that the young rookie went through. Just lucky to be alive and lucky that he is going to make a full recovery. I don't know if he's going to be good to go by training camp, per se, but it was said that he will make a full recovery.
Cardinals rookie linebacker Zaven Collins arrested for excessive speed and reckless driving in Arizona. Not too bright. He probably won't get in too much trouble in regards to the NFL for that. Do you want to say anything about that, or can I keep it moving here?
Yeah, you can keep it moving. Not much else to say. Just, again,
Stupidity.
Done by a young player.
Steelers release guard David DeCastro. NFL's going to this one. This is the big one. NFL's going to start taking bids on hosting the scouting combine in 2023. Stop. Why are they going to do that? This makes no sense. Indy is the perfect place for the combine. We've talked about this. We're going to talk about it. We're going to bitch about it when it finally does happen and it's not in Indy anymore. The NFL is trying to capitalize on the opportunity to make some more money off of this event that is now publicized, and we actually get to watch it as fans and all this stuff. And we keep watching. The NFL is going to want to keep making money off of it. So, I mean, this was bound to happen eventually, but it's a dumb move.
Yeah, I think it really is. And they're turning it into the draft where they want cities to bid on it. They want to turn it into an event, like you said. But the thing is, the combine isn't really for the fans. It's for the teams. It's for the teams to get readings of players. It's where a lot of the talks begins and a lot of networking, and where kind of the offseason begins as far as the tampering, where agents start feeling things out with different teams for free agents. And the thing about it being in Indy is that everything is such in a centralized location in downtown Indianapolis, where not only can you get the on-field work done and you can meet with different people, you can get all the medical stuff done in the same place right there in Indy, where it has literally world-class medical equipment. Everything is there, and it gets the players in and out very, very quickly. Now, if you talk about moving it to a city like LA, I mean, LA, the glorious city, but then again, you think of all the traffic and you think of how you have to go all these different places for it to happen.
Did you just knock your mic over?
You have to go all these different places. I did, but I caught it. I had those quick hands. Anyways, it's just not in a centralized location like it is in Indy. So I think it's a dumb move. I really do. It just doesn't really make any sense when this is for the teams. It's not something for the fans. The fans don't really even get allowed into the combine. So why are you making this big event for fans when this is something where this is a business trip for teams? I really don't understand.
Well, not to mention,
I do understand that the NFL wants to make as much money off it as possible. I think it's just a stupid idea.
I'm not 100% sure on this, but I don't believe the NFL pays for plane tickets for these players to get to the combine. I don't know. Maybe their agents take care of it. There we go. That's the word I was looking for. The agents probably take care of that. But, these NCAA players don't make any money, Andrew, but they might be making some money this year. Kavanaugh. Remember how much everybody hated him not too long ago? Bet certain people are going to love him for this recent decision with the Supreme Court. Basically, ruled an antitrust violation that these NCAA players are not allowed to make money off their name and likeness. I did a little reading on this and listening on this, but I'm no lawyer. But essentially, I mean, NCAA players are going to be able to start making money off their name and likeness this year.
Right, and I'm a fan of this. I mean, just because you're going to school, I mean, do I think that the schools should pay the players? No, I'm not really on that train quite yet, because that can get into some sticky situations where colleges are bidding for different players. Right. But if it's your name and if it's your autograph, you should be able to profit off of that. The school doesn't own that, you do. So I think it's a big win for the players. This should have been done a long time ago. And so I think, and I do hold it in a different light than saying colleges can pay athletes, because the colleges aren't involved. If you want to sign a deal for 10 grand to sign 100 to do or 1,000 items or something, you should be free to do that. The school shouldn't hold you to that.
No, especially when your team makes you sit around after a game for 2 hours signing a bunch of stuff, having these signing events and stuff like that. You don't even get to make any money off stuff like that. That's ridiculous. NFL approves alternate helmets for teams wearing throwback uniforms starting in 2022. Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it, love it, love it.
So we could see like the old creamsicle helmets for the Buccaneers, those jerseys, maybe some old Oilers for the Tennessee Titans. I want to see the Indianapolis Colts wear that dark blue helmet with their throwbacks from like the 1950s Baltimore Colts. Those uniforms and that helmet are absolute fire.
Yes.
Can't wait to see that. I hope the Colts start doing a throwback weekend every year once this becomes available in 2022.
I agree. Andrew, let's just go ahead and move it along here to your segment. All about Andrew and the new guys, the new kid at school. And I am just so sorry. I had the bell so loud. That was so loud. I'm just going to apologize now. Levi, if you're listening, I'm sorry.
New kid at school. We're going with the 4th round pick this week, Kylan Granson. So he was selected with the 127th pick in the 2021 NFL draft. He was born in Austin, Texas, and he lived there pretty much his entire childhood. He originally attended Marble Falls High School and played varsity as a sophomore. And then after his sophomore year, he transferred to Austin Westlake High School before his junior. And then as a senior, he was named second team all district 14 in the 6A class. And he even missed part of the season with a broken leg, still made all districts. So that's pretty cool. He had 39 catches, 630 yards, and 10 TDs as a senior. So he was out there balling. Led his team to the 6A championship game. And he was also pretty good at track. He was a letterman in the 100 meter, the 200 meter, and the long jump. So You can already tell this kid's a pretty big athlete. But the thing is, with his injuries and transferring and everything, he wasn't really highly recruited out of high school. He was only a 2-star recruit, and he really only had a couple of FCS offers. The most notable was Harvard. And then at the very end, Rice offered him, and it wasn't even a scholarship, but he did sign with Rice. What Rice did is they offered Granson a gray shirt before a scholarship opened. So most people probably don't know. I mean, you probably heard of what a red shirt is, where you sit out your freshman year, or you sit out a year, you get an extra year of eligibility. But what a gray shirt is when a team offers a player enrollment on scholarship at the start of the second semester after the upcoming season. So then the athlete has about 5 years to complete 4 years of eligibility, and he has the ability to redshirt at some point. So that will happen sometimes if a team over offers on scholarships and they just don't have enough. So Rice gave that to him, and the original plan for Granson was to kind of sit out that year, but he impressed so much that he was able to get on scholarship, and he made an impact right away. So he played 2 seasons at Rice, and he actually led the team in receiving yards that freshman year. But then after his sophomore year, this is kind of where things get a little dicey with Granson. So he left the program after his sophomore year because Rice fired David Bailiff. And he was really, really close with that head coach. So he actually enrolled at Austin Community College, trying to be able to be on that team there. Didn't have any other offers from any big college programs.
Yeah.
Well, as he enrolled at Austin Community College, his old head coach Bailiff actually recommended him to SMU. So SMU offered him as a walk-on, and he redshirted in 2018 because of the transfer protocols. But then once he did find his way on the field at SMU, just became a monster. So he became that hybrid tight end, because at Rice, the first 2 years, even though he was a tight end coming out of high school, he played a wide receiver at Rice. So once he moved to SMU, he kind of played a hybrid tight end role. So, but in that first year as a junior, he had 731 yards, 9 TDs, and he earned second team all AAC his first year there at SMU. So pretty good first year there. But then as he entered his senior year, this is kind of cool. His name used to be Kylan Schooning. That was his original last name. But until his senior year of college, he adopted his stepfather's last name of Granson. And his stepfather was his strength coach in high school. So that was kind of cool. So now under the name of Kylan Granson, he had another big year. His senior year, he had 536 yards, 5 TDs, and he earned first team all AAC and led the team in touchdowns. So he ended his career at SMU pretty well, and he certainly shined once he got there. He attended the Senior Bowl, and that's when he really impressed with his hands, his athletic ability, and that's what really got the Colts' attention. So now we're kind of moving into how he makes an impact with the Colts. And he's honestly that athletic F tight end that Frank Reich has been looking for in his offense. Yep. He is a tad undersized. He's only 6'1", 240 pounds, but he's got a 36.5-inch vertical, so that'll definitely help him with jump balls and being able to get downfield. Mm-hmm. So when you think of Kylan Granson, think of a more athletic Trey Burton. So he's kind of the size of Trey Burton, but he's definitely a lot more athletic than Trey Burton and can make a lot more plays down the field. So he's got great acceleration and can really stress linebackers and safeties over the middle of the field. And he can be placed all over the field too. Not only in the slot, he can play out wide, he can play in line. You can even put him in the backfield, use him as a fullback. He can play all over this offense. And the reason he can do that is because he's a very, very smart player. I mean, if you're getting recruited by Harvard, you're obviously a smart player. And an SMU coach said that he was one of the smartest players in the entire program. So the Colts are going to throw a lot at him, especially if they're going to put him all over the field and play him in a bunch of different roles. Yeah. But I think he's a guy that can handle all that because he is intelligent and smart enough that he can do that. So I really think he's going to be able to make an impact sooner rather than later for this Colts offense. And he can definitely be used as a weapon downfield and in the seam. So Kylan Granson will definitely make plays for the Colts this year. And I'm really excited to see what happens once he gets on the field.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite draft picks. I think this is probably, aside from Kwity Paye, I'd say this is probably my number 2 favorite draft pick. I thought tight end was something we should target in the draft. I didn't realize we were going to come away with what I think is a steal. But you never really know till you see the play on the field. So we'll see when it happens. But that's the end of...
Yeah, and Kylan Granson, he does need to work on his blocking a little bit, but the Colts didn't draft him to block. We've got Jack Doyle and Mo Alley Cox, who are monsters in the blocking game. Kylan Granson was drafted to be a receiving tight end and be a weapon and a mismatch. And that's exactly where Frank Reich is going to put him in this offense.
Yep. That's it. That's the episode. Thanks for listening. It was another long one. We do that, but make sure to go follow us on all the things. Twitter at @theeducatedfan_. That's the Educated Fan _. And if you can't figure it out, just go find us on Facebook, The Educated Fan, without any underscores, if that's easier for you. Okay. Or something I should probably add to the mix here, even I'll just say it. Go to theeducatedfan.com. If you don't like YouTube and you want to watch our recent episodes through our website, you can do that. YouTube is still going to be getting, all the views and all that. But you can do it. Go check us out at theeducatedfan.com right now. Go leave reviews. Let us know what you think about the episode through Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. I think that's it. Andrew, do you have anything for the fans?
Definitely check out our website. Check out the Horseshoe Huddle on Sports Illustrated, where you can see my work.
All right.
Check out the website to see Brandon's work.
Go Colts.
Go Colts.